Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. It's Valentine's Day in 2022, in case somehow I make it on YouTube for years and you need to know what year it is. Um, it's the day of love, but there are all kinds of love out there. Granted, I do understand that Valentine's is specifically about romantic love, but I'm not in a romance at the moment with anyone, so can't relate. So I thought, what other types of love can be explored? And that's when I was glancing at my bookshelf and picked up a novel I actually haven't read in some years, but I absolutely love it. And that would be this one, The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. Now, before we dive in, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I promise you, when I hit the 500 across the things, the YouTubes, the Instagrams, and the Twitters, I am the Ebony Otaku everywhere. Nerdy giveaways coming. Every time you see me, I'm in a different place. I have lots of nerdy stuff, and honestly, some of it needs to go because the collection has gotten quite large. So do me a favor so I can send you something. Have a U.S. address. Shipping be real. So without further ado, let's get into it. This was the last morning he would have to light the fire. He had lit it every morning since his mother died 6 years before. He had lit the fire, boiled water, and poured the water into a bowl and taken it into the room where his father sat upon his bed, coughing and fumbling for his shoes upon the floor. Every morning for these 6 years, the old man had waited for his son to bring in hot water to ease him of his morning coughing. Now father and son could rest. There was a woman coming to the house. Never again would Wang Lung have to rise in the summer and in the winter at dawn to light the fire. He could lie in his bed and wait. He would also have a bowl of water brought to him. And if the earth were fruitful, there would be tea leaves in the water. Once in some years or so, it happened. And if the woman wearied, there would be children to light the fire, the many children she would bear to Wang Lung. Wang Lung stopped, struck by the thought of children running around in their 3 rooms. 3 rooms had always seemed much to them, a house half empty since his mother died. They were always having to resist relatives who were more crowded. His uncle, with his endless brood of children, coaxing. Now, how can 2 lone men need so much room? Cannot father and son sleep together? The warmth of the young one's body will comfort the old one. But the father always replied, I'm saving my bed for my grandson. He will warm my bones in my old age. Now, the grandsons were coming. This is a really interesting read. A lot of us in America were probably assigned this, maybe not now, every book's being burned, but a lot of us in America were assigned this as required reading in school. I actually never got it as required reading because I grew up in private school and we had a whole different reading list. It was a private Baptist school, so whatever. We read like the Joy Luck Club and stuff, so they were very open-minded. It was a really good school. But this one never came across. When in my later teens, I really started exploring Asian authors, and I was just in that part of the bookstore one day. Me and my dad used to go to the bookstore for fun. See the glass? Nerd. Okay? Nerd. I just ran across it because you don't always know when you're running across a book that might be in a genre you like. You have to pay attention to the artwork on the cover, which is something I got really good at. And you also have to pay attention to the names as well. But this one, the spine at the time stuck out to me. This is a copy I've had for a long time. So the back cover is gone. But that's a well-loved, well-read book. But it was a small novel, and I read it in less than a day, obviously. but it's about a different kind of love. It's about the love for what you have, for the love of the position in life the universe has granted you, a love for everything fate has granted, and not forgetting what you had before your current position. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get into Wang Lung is our central character. He is a farmer. And in his portion of China, he's a poor farmer. There is a central house in his village where the rich man with his rich family lives. And Wang Lung has some envy towards that family. But also, he's grateful for the earth that has been given to him. He rents a plot of land, like many peasants in the area, from the richest family in the village, and he has that plot of land to earn his living. And not just earn his living, but grow some of the food that is eaten in his household as well. That's why the earth is good. We have to love what we have and take care of it. But he has a small portion of land, and it's his. He's had to pay for it. It's taken a long, many years of backbreaking work to buy his own land, but he's got that land, and he is working that land, and he's a proud man. Like a good son, he took care of his parents when they got older. In the arrangement of Chinese households, not just Chinese households, this happens in African households, and I think a lot of Latin households, I'm talking South America, households are arranged this way. We take in our elders. I am not African, I'm of African descent, but that part of Black culture is in me. My mother lives with me. I could never see sending my mom to a nursing home or having people take care of her that weren't me. I work hard so that my mother, in her golden years, she can have an easier life. And that's what Wang Lung is doing. He's proud of that. He had his father and mother with him. He's the son. He's doing the right thing. He's doing his filial duty. The gods should bless him for that. His father is old and his mother has now passed away. But every day when his father is coughing and having a hard time getting up, he does his son's duty and brings something to soothe his father's coughing. That's a beautiful picture of parent child love. And I think sometimes these cultures that are so family centric in terms of duty, not just love, because sometimes duty supersedes love, they get a bad rap like, oh, you got to marry this person because of the family. Oh, you got to have this career because of the family. Well, in these cultures, the family literally creates your life, not just you being born, but what you're going to be able to do in society. Especially if a culture is still in a caste type system. And at this point in history for this book, they're in a caste system. If you're born a peasant, you're probably going to die a peasant. If you're born into the upper classes, you're just going to marry into a higher upper class. But your existence literally is for the benefit of the family or the tribe. That's just how it is. That way, everybody knows their place in society. Nobody gets it mixed up, and we all do the right thing for one another, the family. As long as everybody knows their place, nothing is out of place. Like how I did that. But on this day, Wang Lung is happy because he has earned enough to get a wife. Now, he's not getting. Oh my goodness, how can I say this and not have people come at me in the comments? Um, he's not marrying up. We'll say it that way. Not marrying up financially, not marrying up for looks. You know what? He's not marrying for finances or looks. To be able to have a wife in this stage of society, it is an accomplishment the way we would look at getting a degree or buying your first house. The only men who could have wives are men who could afford wives. Women aren't cheap. Even poor women, we ain't cheap. You want a woman? You gotta pay. In modern terms, that shows up in terms of getting nails and hair done. I pay for it myself. But flex. But in traditional old cultures, that came in the form of dowries. That came in the form of bride prices. You had to pay to get a bride, and then you had to have a place to put the bride. and she had to have something to do. Well, he's gotten to a position in life which for a poor farmer is a good position. I can afford a wife. Yay me. Look at me putting on my best little coat today. I'm looking good. Gonna go claim my bride. And the wedding isn't really much of a thing. What he's thinking about is practical terms. We're bringing a woman into the house. He's not even thinking about the hanky of the panky. He's not thinking about that. He's thinking about she'll take care of my father. And when she's too old, our children will take care of us. I'm going to have children eventually. He's not even excited about her. He's excited about what she brings him because, you can't have children by yourself yet. But that's what he's excited for. He's going to that next level of what he can be in his society. Not just a farmer who's pulling out a living to live, but he's a dutiful son and he's going to provide grandsons so that his old father has a grandson in the bed to cuddle with and he'll keep his old bones warm and youth will re-energize old age and his father can be happy and proud that the family name is being passed on in a son and he'll have a wife who does the cooking and stays home and takes care of the children and when he comes home from the farm work every day there'll be a hot bowl of soup and rice waiting for him. That's what he's thinking about. And it's not wrong. It's different from my sister. No, it's not. I want my woman barefoot and pregnant. It's not different. We're not all that. We're not as different as people think we are. Okay? Anywho, but that's what he's thinking about. Well, guess where his wife is coming from? The rich man's house. She's a servant there. And when he goes to collect her, she's a very plain woman, which there's nothing wrong with that. Honestly, we're all plain. The reason nobody's plain is we live in the age of makeup and hair extensions. That goes for the men too. That's just how things are now. Everybody used to be plain. If you didn't have access to beauty treatments, we're all plain. Everybody's plain. Have you ever watched period pieces back when, not even rich people bathed? We're all plain. Okay? Very few distinguished natural beauties out there. That's a rare gift to have from nature. Anyway, I digress. It's not even really a wedding ceremony. It's more like, here she is. You gave us the money. Here's the woman. And they walk home silently together. Even though he doesn't say it out loud, internally he's just so proud. I have a woman. There's going to be children. There's going to be sons. There's going to be legacy. I have more to provide for. I'm going to have to save up money and buy more land. And he's just on the inside. His love for his land grows. And even though it's not said explicitly, over time, he grows to love his wife. And love is an interesting concept in old marriages, whether you are looking at old European customs, if you're looking at, China and Japan, Asian cultures, if you're looking at African cultures, marriage has been a transaction for most cultures up until recent history. People didn't marry for love. You married because we needed you to marry this person. That's just only until like the past 200 years has love come into the equation. People grew to love their spouse over time. Anybody could marry anyone. Over time, as you go through hardships and struggles together, as you feed your children together, take care of your ailing parents together, love comes later. Love's not how it starts. Love's where you end up because you prove yourselves to one another over time. It's a very different concept to most Western culture. And she does. She takes over those household chores, and Wang Lung can go out now and till his ground more. In fact, he tills his ground well enough that he's able to buy more land from the rich house. He's able to buy more land, and eventually children do come. He's got more mouths to feed. He's got to work harder. And here's what's interesting. When you get to the portion of the book where the children are being born, I should hope that most of us know how pregnancy works and birth. Okay. When it comes to that portion, remember, they're not in what we call modern society. This is last century stuff. No, century before last. Wow, y'all, time's flying. But when it comes time for her to give birth, Wang Lung has no part in it. The whole birth process is women's work. She's like, you go outside, and when you come back in, there'll be a baby. And that's exactly what happens. She doesn't scream. She don't yell. Nobody knows what's going on. But she tells him when to come back in the house on the day of birth. And he's just out there doing the nervous dad thing, trying to act like he's not nervous, but he is. Trying not to do the nervous dad thing. And he comes back in when she tells him to. There's no sign that birth happened. And this is really interesting to me because we always wonder, why don't men understand women's bodies? There has been such great pains taken over the years to honestly prevent men from knowing that stuff because it's a lot. But all of the process of birth, he doesn't know what she went through because he didn't see it. He didn't hear it. You know, these days it's like, put dad in the delivery room. Oh, that's my baby. Fainting because I saw blood. You know, that's what we do now. Videotape it. Don't put me on video. It's a whole thing. He was outside smoking a pipe and she's quietly pushing a human out of her. Couldn't be me. And he comes back in when she tells him to. There's no mess. There's nothing that says she gave birth. She silently birthed all of their children. And mess free. I don't know how she did that. Well, she cleaned it up, obviously. But he's so proud. He's so proud. Now there's children. There's a son. That's what you want, a son. Now we can have a daughter, now that there's been a son. But, you know, grandpa is so excited. Dad is excited. And mom, like, immediately goes back to her work. And this is where the book is really interesting. It's a family dynamic I haven't experienced before, but I love reading about it because I think you can swap the word pride with love. Wang Lung is so proud of his child. Whether it's a daughter or a son, they have daughters, they have sons. They get both in this book. And, you know, when the wife gives birth to a daughter, she actually says to him, oh, it's just a little slave, nothing to be excited about. I could do a whole dissertation on just that sentence, but that's not for today. But internally, boy or girl, Wang Lung's like, I made a baby. He loves his family. He has pride in his family because his children are added. He has more to support. He earns more with his land. For some years, the land is good. He earns enough to buy more land and more land. Rooms are added to the house. Grandpa is so proud. He's done everything he's supposed to, and he's been able to do it because he brought this woman into his house. Even if she was just a slave, just a servant, now she's his wife. She's the mother of the children. She's the keeper of the home. She's the cooker of the meals. She's the reason that I get to only do man stuff. That is a certain kind of love. And Wang Lung loves his fields. He takes so much pride in the earth that has been gifted him. Now, the contrasting family we see in this novel is the rich family that lives in the middle of town. They have a name. I've forgotten it. We're going to call them the rich family. They're in the middle of this village, and they've kind of squandered what they have. They rent and sell land to all the peasants to then make a living from. But the peasants have to pay them in terms of crops and money. It's a whole serf caste system. It's a thing. The rich owner of the house has sons, and they're wicked. He raised wicked boys. They were born into wealth, and they act like it. Wealth isn't bad, but all children need discipline. His children weren't disciplined. He's a man who was able to not just have a wife, but wives. Because in these cultures, you're able to, as many women as you can afford, you can have. If you can afford them. And remember, not cheap. So you want 4 wives? You got 4 times the cost coming at you. Everybody wants their own bedroom. Everybody wants their nails done. And he also becomes an opium addict. He eventually takes on a concubine that he just finds so beautiful. And she kind of leads him down the path of doing the things. And he develops an opium addiction. and starts making foolish decisions because his sons want more money now. And they start selling off bits of the land that made their family rich. And Wang Lung takes advantage of that. As he is able, he buys more and more and more of the land. Now, there comes a point where there is drought and devastation across China, um, to the point that nothing is coming out of Wang Lung's earth. He does not want to sell his land, but he gathers his family and takes them into the city to live a life of poverty on the streets so that he can at least feed them. Because in the city, being a big, strong man, he at least can get work as a rickshaw driver or a coolie carrying bags. And he learns things about his wife that he never would have known had that period not happened. When they're in the city, his wife actually takes control. She's been this meek, reluctant, reduced character up until this point, but she takes charge now. She's like, this is where we go beg for food. This is where you get rice. This is how we build a shelter for ourselves so nobody's going to steal from us. This is where you go to get work every day. Kids do these things. Are we clear? And he's like, who are you and where is my no talking wife? It turned out that in her early childhood, she had been through a period of poverty and drought just like this, and had to come to this exact same city and learned how to survive. Through her prior knowledge, the family survives, and Wang Lung becomes even more proud, in love with his wife. Now, things don't stay bad forever. Eventually, they're able to return home. And this is where the book takes a really sharp turn, because Wang Lung, after going through that kind of poverty, is determined this isn't happening again. Me and my family are not doing this. And he works harder in his land, and he buys more of the rich family's land because they lost a lot during the drought. No one was paying them. No one was growing food. They were selling things in the house. The sons were selling furniture and clothes and jewelry. And you know what? Old man was happy as long as his opium pipe was filled. But eventually, even that didn't happen. You see where the story's going. Wang Lung begins to prosper in the same ways as the rich family. In fact, he prospers so much that he fancies that he can now start doing some of the things the rich family did. Beyond adding walls and rooms to his house, the wife that got him through the drought birthed his children quietly and took care of his dying father. Now he's looking at her because he's a different man of a different status now. I'm above this kind of woman. She's no longer desirable. I hate that word. She's not desirable anymore. I deserve more than this because I'm big man now. And he starts hanging out in the red light district, basically, in the houses of mirth. I got phrases, don't I? And he finds a woman of the night. Hey, and no shame on her. She's just a victim of the system. She didn't create the system. Never shame the victim of the system. But I don't know if China still does this. And Japan had houses like this as well. But brothels back in the day, they weren't just like, oh, go in, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and leave. It's a whole spectacle. Like it's tea service, it's acrobatics, it's music, and it's a nice room. Like it's a whole thing. You don't just go and then leave. It's a thing. There's ceremony for everything. And there's just one particular girl that he's just like, I want her. And he ends up buying her out of the house. But she's a bad influence on him. Not because she's a working girl, but because she's a greedy girl. Those are two different things. And she influences him to eventually take the position of the rich man in life. Not just his position, but his home. And I'll stop there because you can probably guess how the story goes from here. The good earth reminds us to love what we have. Wang Lung was blessed at the beginning of the story. He was a poor man who was still able to have a wife. He was still able to have children. He was able to make his father proud. He survived drought because the right woman was his wife at the right time. Had he been with the pretty prostitute, he wouldn't have made it through that because she wouldn't have had the knowledge that this poor servant woman, servant girl that he married had, plain or not. The land that he was able to acquire provided everything his family needed. It gave them the rice they ate every night. It provided their income. The mud provided the building materials for their walls, the kindling for their fires. Everything came from the earth. And the rich man in town and Wang Lung are each other's opposites. They're playing against each other because Wang Lung had a choice to make. I will remain a steadfast man who cherishes everything he has, or I'll set my sights even higher and become that in that house. And I'll be the man who sits on the rich chair and smokes his opium and has pretty women everywhere, and people come to me for advice and to rent land and for loans. What he had wasn't good enough. He didn't love it enough. And I think that's a lesson all of us can take. You know, especially living in Western culture. I'm American. I didn't choose it. It was given to me for my birthday. But in my culture, at least I can say there is an emphasis on more, more, more. What's your next going to be? Live your best life. Name it and claim it. Go after what you want. Reach your dreams. More, more, more. We're a very consumeristic culture. It's just how it is. We're a service-based culture. Everybody's got to do something for everyone else. Homesteading and all that, it's almost gone by the wayside. We are a culture of excess. In the home I live in, it might be too big for just me and my mom, but I like it. It's just how we are. Do I need 700 books? No, but I have them, and I'll probably get more because I like it. We are a culture of make more money. And when you make more money, you do more with that money. When you do more with that money, you increase yourself again to make more money, to do more with your money. More money, more problems. That's real. But there was a point where Wang Long probably reached his perfect natural happiness, his perfect natural joy in what he had. But he stopped being content with what earth, nature, the universe had given him and decided he needed and wanted more. And it eventually destroys him, just as it did the rich man. I highly recommend reading this book. And I'm not making a statement that wealth is bad. Wealth is not bad. Money's not bad. It's what you do with it. We all make choices. We can all have things without things having us. We can all possess a piece of earth and do right by that piece of earth we've been granted. It's a choice. What choice am I going to make? Am I going to be grateful to what has been granted to me? Am I going to be grateful for the life I have and, be thankful if something better comes along? Or am I going to let materialism, society, tell me that what I have isn't good enough when it might actually be good enough? Please read The Good Earth. It's a classic. It made it to Oprah's book club. That's the year. What year did I buy this? Look, the sticker is still on it. I got it from Walmart. I don't see the year. Date. Oh, it's one of those skew dates. So I don't know what that means, but it was some years ago. Highly recommend reading it and rereading it because every time you read it, you will see something different. And that's the good thing about novels. Novels, printed word, this is words that stay. They mean something. Text that you can hold in your hand is beautiful. And you become as immersed in this as you can a video, a movie, whatever. So please give it a read and tell me about it down in the comments and make some recommendations on other books you'd like me to review because I'm always looking for a new read.